Darren Hart is on and he's going to speak to us today. I invited the fire department to the caucus meeting today.
Sounds good. You ready, Michael?
Yeah, I'm on.
Okay.
I'm trying to get on my other phone.
Good morning, Darren.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. So the reason I was invited today is just to kind of discuss a little bit about issues we're having with illegal burning within the city. I do spend an inordinate amount of time actually dealing with illegal burning. We follow the 2015 International Fire Code. Basically, what that means is, I'll basically tell you what it is bonfires are not permitted without a permit. Then that moves to a recreational fire, which has to be 25 feet away from a residential structure. You're basically a fire pit that someone would have in their yard. Unfortunately, people dig holes in their yard, put cinder blocks around them and burn whatever they want. Then the last thing is a portable outdoor fireplace, and that is like something you get at Lowe's or something like that. It's a smaller, it has a screen, and those are the ones that I would prefer. But basically what people are doing is, and it could be related to COVID, is we're seeing a lot of fires. And I think last time I checked, we had responded to well over 160 illegal burning calls this year. And then my job is I get the phone calls with the neighbors complaining, and then I have to follow up on those. And we have actually had one situation that I know of so far where it did lead to an assault between neighbors. My office, we're used as pawns. Sometimes if there's a neighbor dispute, well, I'll get you, I'll call the fire inspector on you. And then we have to go try and figure things out. We do spend a lot of time dealing with this. I did make a few proposals to Councilwoman Schaaf that I would like to maybe possibly explore in the future as far as illegal burning of fires in the city. I would like to do away with the recreational fire at some point. Basically, like I said, that's the one where people have a fire ring or a fire pit. They throw whatever they want in there. They smoke out their neighbors. I get a lot of calls from the elderly saying I can't open my windows on a hot day because my neighbor's burning. By the time I get there, the fire's out, and I usually get a call the next day. So I can't really do a lot as far as issuing citations if I don't see the fire happening. Also, as far as the quality of life ordinance goes, it does address open burning within the city. It doesn't address what you can burn. It addresses what you can't, but it doesn't address what you can. And really, the only thing you're allowed to burn within the city is dry, what we call seasoned firewood, and that's it. People burn leaves, people burn shrubbery, people burn garbage. They burn wires trying to burn the insulation off so they can use the copper, things of that nature. So I just, it is something that is kind of becoming an issue. And like I said, we're a two-person office. We do fire prevention, fire inspection of commercial properties, and we also investigate fires, structure fires. So with the increase in the illegal burning, we are spending a lot of our time trying to deal with this problem. And I do feel that I have a couple of ideas that I would like to kind of float by council just in the early stages. I know at one point burning within the city was completely banned. It used to be you could burn on Saturday. Then it was banned. Then we got the portable outdoor fireplaces, and then that morphed into the recreational fires. So if we could maybe, basically what I need is fire officers. The ordinance is kind of vague in spots. The ordinance says atmospheric conditions as part of it. It's basically, I'll read it off to you. Open burning shall be prohibited when atmospheric conditions or local circumstances make such fires hazardous. That's kind of a vague statement. That's kind of subjective. We need something a little more concrete for the fire officers to be able to follow. One of the things I proposed was no burning if we have sustained winds or gusts over 10 miles an hour. Another thing I would like to explore is maybe having hours of burning, maybe on weekends for maybe 6 to midnight, during the weekdays, maybe 6 to 11. That way there's a set time. If a fire truck is called to a residence at 12:30 for a fire, they can say, hey, you can't burn past midnight. And then we have something concrete for our fire officers to follow. So those are just some of the things I would like to kind of explore. We do need to do something. And like I said, I think that with the quarantine and things, people were looking for stuff to do. Fires in the backyard have increased, and I don't want to hurt the people that follow the rules, because we have a lot of good people in this city that follow the rules, and they're very conscientious people, and they take care of their neighbors. But when people move into the city from outside of the city, from another state or from the country, they just burn whatever they want. They don't take the time to kind of look at the burning ordinance, and that's where we're running into issues. And the people that suffer are the people that have lived in these neighborhoods for 40 years and haven't had any problems. And somebody new moves in, and they just start with the fires and start smoking out the neighbors. So I don't know if anybody has any questions or anything.
Hey, Darren, could you
Yes.
just reiterate, for the fire pits, though, to be legal right now as recreational fires, they have to be 25 feet away, is that correct, from the
Yes.
structure?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The recreational fire is 25 feet. The portable fireplace is 15.
Okay.
Those are smaller, and they have a screen, which is nice. That kind of cuts down on embers flying and things like that. That's why that, I believe, is 15 feet. But yeah, the fire rings, the fire pits are 25.
Okay, and that's under the International Fire Code, or that's what
Yes.
we need to? Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
yes, ma'am. We follow the 2015 International Fire Code, and that's what it calls for within a fire code.
Okay, and I bet you people don't even realize that they have to have, I mean, I see people like under a back porch or something doing this, so I'm sure
Yeah.
they don't even know what would be safe, actually. I mean.
Right.
Okay,
And this is a lot of times we have to educate people when we get there to these calls, and have to say, hey, this fire is not legal. You have to be 25 feet from your residence. We did have actually somebody dug a pit about 3 feet from their neighbor's garage, and surprised they caught their neighbor's garage on fire.
oh my gosh.
So we have had issues like that, and we've had that a lot.
Thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Yes.
You have, you've made it concrete about the issues that you're dealing with by telling us the number of calls you've had, the incidents that have arisen, and, the potential for, not just neighborly disputes, but, real problems. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
We have
Anybody
any
else
other
have any
questions for Darren?
No questions, but thank you for prompt service when we ask for anything, Darren.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you. I will. I do have something kind of written up that I will make sure every council gets to kind of review. And then, down in the future, if anybody would like to sit down and kind of go over my proposals, I'd be glad to do that.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your time. Okay.
Thank you, Darren. I really
very welcome.
appreciate the time you spent today with us. And I really am thinking that that's a definitely positive move for our city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good day, everybody.
You too.
Is there any other items on our agenda council would like to discuss this morning? We're not too used to being ahead of the schedule. Except Mr. Keys is still having a little issue with his Zoom call here, but
The only thing I suggested before you came on, Jim, is that we include, a moment of silence for the two families, actually three families, since there was a third shooting victim affected the other night. And Kathy nominated me to do that, but if somebody else would like to do that, I would defer to them. I just think, we lost two people. So I'll be happy, not happy, but I would take that upon myself to pause for those families, if that's okay with everybody.
that's great. Or that's appropriate.
Yes, that's the right word.
Kathy, was there anything that council should know with our budget, or not our budget, but our finance meeting afterwards? I know the mayor was possibly going to speak, and I don't know if you had any other trying issues itself. I know we got a lot on our plate when it comes to our shortfall, but
Jim,
yes.
Paul's going to go over our monthly report, and I know he's going to talk to us. If they have any concerns about anything, they're going to bring it up at that time. I'm thinking perhaps the water issue may be addressed possibly if it has culminated to the point where they can talk to us.
Okay.
I have one other thing just from the agenda, the additional money for outreach for the census. We need to really do something. I don't know if that's the right venue to do it or the right amount, but we need all hands on deck because the Trump administration is shortening the time for census returns from the end of October to the end of September. So we are under a huge deadline now. I know the city, we really haven't budged much beyond that, whatever, 61%. We are not alone in this. I think that that's kind of the average across the country. So I think if there are any other ways we can get people to respond, the door knockers are not going to be, have to be done by the end of September. So this is another attempt to undercount the people who live in cities. And I'm sorry, but it is political, but it's going to hurt us. So that I just wanted to, I'm glad it's on our agenda so we can be aware of that.
Can I comment?
Please do.
I just wanted to provide a little bit of clarification on that. That was in, that 5,000 is the 5,000 that the COG is contributing to our initial proposal here at the city to do our outreach efforts. So that was included in our original proposal. They just sent the check, so now it's being appropriated. So that's from the the Census Outreach Coordinator's budget. But I'll give an update to kind of on our next steps, and we've been brainstorming since that announcement that the census was going to have to pull back the deadline. So we feel that sense of urgency as well, and it's pretty upsetting. There was no reason not to extend the deadline, and you got to wonder why not? why not extend the deadline?
Thanks, Renee.
Yep.
Jim,
Yes.
we need to address Rose's retiring.
Yes, I'm aware of that, and there has been some discussions. I know we did get a resume or from one of the assistants in the clerk's office itself, but we are in the works of getting something together on how we should move forward with that.
Right.
Well, who's working on that? Are people on council? I mean, this is our position, so what is our role in moving forward on this? I sent everybody a story about, the skills needed for municipal clerks in this digital age, and I think not all of that was relevant, but some of it was. So, I mean, this is council's prerogative. So who is working on this?
I am personally, along with Rose, I have reached out to our former clerk, Mr. Clem, just to, although he was here for a good many years, just to see the process again on how it was done in the past. And with that being said, we're trying to also figure out, I know Rose's official retirement is in September. But we're just trying to put things together on how to move forward, or what our options officially are.
And Rose's last day is September 15th. Is that correct?
It seems to me we may have to then just go with a, temporary position until, that's not a lot of time. That's what, 5 weeks? Rose, your mute is on, so we can't really hear you.
Rose said that she's taking her vacation time, so she probably.
It's going to be almost part-time.
I mean, I think there's an opportunity here to figure out, look at it by position, not by person. What do we want that position to do for, in the age we're in now? Might we really be innovative? I mean, I'm sure Jim Clem is helpful, but if you remember, one of the issues with Jim Clem is that all that institutional knowledge was in his head, and he ended up being hired as a consultant after his retirement. And I don't know if that was a good or a bad idea, but it did end up costing money to have somebody retire and then still stay on board. So for people who weren't on council then, I'm happy to go and dig up that that history of how that transpired. So Rose, when did you become city clerk?
June 14th, 2014.
Okay.
I think that why don't we have HR come up with a schematic for what the job does, all of its roles, all of its responsibilities, like they do any other job, and use that, and we could have it tweaked if necessary.
There already is a job description.
I thought that was sent to all of us. I think I have a copy
It
of that.
was.
Yes,
Okay.
we did get a job description, but Rose has been there for 6 years. I'm trying to make the case that job descriptions should not be set in stone, especially in the environment that we're in right now, where things are being done digitally. Did anybody read that story I sent, or was that just something that I sent off into the ether? Why bother trying to get people to think in new ways? It's discouraging to me.
I did read at least parts of the article, and while I agree, I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know what format the city is going to go with, post-pandemic. And so there are a lot of things that may change, but I don't think we have control over them today. I think
So that's where I think we go to the expertise of, say, the Pennsylvania Municipal League. And this is not a critique of the way the position is being held now, but it's not a union position. We have the opportunity to say, this is the one function over which we have input and advice. So I think we should take advantage of it to make sure that not only do we pick the right person, but that we have the right job description in there.
It should be noted also that if we do pick someone from outside, we may need a consultant to help teach them the job. It's just something to throw out there. So, or even if we pick someone from the inside, we still may need a consultant to help bring along the transition.
And I do recall when we did have Mr. Clem as a consultant, things happened sort of quickly at that time where the nominees we had for that position did need a little more knowledge for the position and how it has worked in the city of Erie.
May I ask a question to Rose? Is your date set in stone? Would you be able to move it back a month or so?
No.
Is that a firm no or just
Rose
a
has
no?
given us,
That's just a no.
Rose has given us a lot of time to prepare for this. It's not like she came to the meeting today and said, I'm done. We've known about this, so
Yes.
the ball's in our court.
We also have two ladies that have been working with Rose and learning what is going on. We bring somebody in from the outside. Me, I'm a rookie here this time, but still, do we step on the experience that we have here to go outside there and find somebody digital? I don't agree with that at all.
Mr.
And a
President,
lot- Yes, sir.
my opinion is I believe in bringing people up that's already in the system. We know the personality. You know, we have people already in our office that has substituted for Rose when she was absent. We know who they are. I don't think there's a need for a consultant. I believe the two ladies there can do the job. They have done the job. And I believe in bringing up within the organization and then let the union do their thing for that vacant position.
I
Thank you.
think that we have an opportunity here to figure out, could there be cost savings? If we don't start looking at how we operate, how can we put an eye on the rest of the city operations? We have a deficit for this year. We know that we're going to have a deficit for next year. I agree with, that promoting from within is good, but this is like every single function when city council tries to do something, we don't have a process. It's like when we tried to fill the seats, the empty seats, we don't have a process. We make it up as we go along. Mel, there are two people working in the city clerk's office. Who do you suggest get promoted? Unless you have a job description and you have an actual job advertisement. It doesn't make logical sense to me. Are you going to draw a name out of the hat? Are you going to put the names of the two current assistants in there and say, okay, well, we'll just pick one out of the hat? There is the potential here to have not a good process.
I
Mr.
have a
President,
recommendation.
I having come, not being raised up in the ways of how city government works, and when people say that government should be run more like a business, it shouldn't always, but in this case, in terms of personnel, it certainly should. We ought to make sure that we do have the job description. Does anybody have anything to add to the job description? if the city council president is doing this, I'm gonna do on my own what I think should be tweaked or revised in the job description to reflect duties
So the
in
team effort.
2020 and beyond.
Mm, mm, mm.
I have a recommendation if I could speak. Why don't we finish the process, or I think, Mr. President, you said you had the process, you have it laid out. Get that process sent out to all council members and then resend out the job descriptions, and then we have a separate focus meeting on this.
Study session, good idea, David.
No, I don't think we need a study session for this.
Oh,
I think we need to talk
no.
about it. We're not
Hell
going to solve
no.
it here.
Little joke there.
No.
But we'll definitely get something out in an email on how the process can go, and we'll get some input. The last thing I want to do is be sending ads out to Buffalo and Cleveland and Pittsburgh when I think we have the qualified people right here in our own building.
No one said that we were sending them
9:05,
out
sir.
to other places. It
9:05.
has to
I
be
didn't
out.
say
What a
that.
waste.
I just said I don't want to.
I didn't say send it out of
9:05.
town.
We did.
All right.
9:05, Mr. President.
All righty. Rose, we'll get our meeting started.
Roll call for the city council meeting of Wednesday, August 5th, 2020. Mr. Winarski, Ms. Allen,
Here.
Mr. Brennan, Mr. Brzezinski, Mr. Keys, Mrs. Shaw, Mr. Witherspoon. Please rise for a moment of silent meditation and pledge of allegiance.
I'm asking today for us to remember the families of the two homicide victims who were shot to death on East 7th Street yesterday. And for everyone, including friends who have been touched by this tragedy.
Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the minutes from Wednesday, July 15th, 2020, and bills for payment on July 24th, 35th, and August 7th, 2020. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Brzezinski, Mr. Keys, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski.
Do you have anybody here this one? Depository sales, Rose?
No, none today.
I'll bring us to citizens to be heard. Good morning.
This is the disembodied voice of Greta Tepper, 1738 West. Greta Tepper, 1738 West 23rd Street, Erie, Pennsylvania, 16502. By the way, I would just like to say that the current vacancy that is going to occur in the city clerk office is a good opportunity to diversify the personnel in that office. I was surprised, but it's a kind of interesting that you folks were discussing illegal burning, because I believe that the notice of violation I received about my gardening was retribution from my neighbors for calling on them because of their burning. I'm one of the people who experienced difficulty breathing in my own house. I was sitting in my house with the windows closed when I smelled smoke. Having once had a house fire, I'm very alert to smoke smells in the house. So I was smelling smoke sufficient to think there was a fire in my house. No, it wasn't. It was burning again in my neighbor around the corner in their yard, such that I could see the smoke going across my street to the other side of my street. Naturally, I did call the police because I have previously talked to them and I've been rudely treated, and I don't talk to them anymore. And that was probably the third time I've had to call on them. So yes, something does need to be done about burning. I would call to your attention the fact that the quality of life ordinance says that they can't burn things that are recyclable. Well, certain kinds of paper are no longer recyclable. So be sure that you realize that when you're changing the ordinance of any burning ordinance. Also, allowing people to do burning between the hours of 6 and 11 at night wouldn't address the fact that people are burning materials and in a manner that is disturbing to their neighbors. And yes, it's unpleasant to have to call the emergency, non-emergency number on your neighbors. I don't like doing it, but I don't like sitting in my house smelling smoke. It's just not appropriate. So, as I mentioned, I received an order to correct code violations from code enforcement, and we had an on-site meeting about it on Monday. But there were two parts to the violation. One referenced weeds and quoted a definition of weeds that was inconsistent with the resolution that you passed on March 3rd, 2019. And within that resolution, it says that resolution that all contradicting language should be removed. And yet what was quoted to me in my notice of violation was a weed definition that was different. So I hope that the circle be closed on this contradiction. What ended up happening, the only thing that they had left after they realized that I was not growing weeds was I was told that there was a triangle adjacent to my neighbor's driveway, and my neighbors had not complained about any safety concerns that I had to provide. The vegetation had to be under 3 feet, or had to be able to see through it. So I removed 2 root-bearing branches from my winterberries to make it see-through in a bush that I planted deliberately by nearest to my neighbor's driveway on that side, so that they could view the beautiful red berries during the winter time. But I believe that this notice was done in retribution to my call. What I am concerned about is that these 2 definitions should be consistent, and that really the original native alternative landscape ordinance, which Mr. Brennan helped bring together when he was first on the council, should be revisited. The whole point of native plant gardening is to support biodiversity, to help capture stormwater. My shrubs are sequestering carbon. And what we need to do is promote a climate where people do have more than one view of what is an attractive home landscape. And actually, since the city is using the property management code, it's really time to change that definition in the property management code. Thank you for your time. Did I use up my time?
I believe so. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next caller.
Ashley Kelly.
Go ahead, caller.
Good morning. Ashlyn, you're muted right now, I believe. Hello?
Ashlyn, there's a small microphone button to the bottom left of your screen. If you click that, it should have a green microphone moving for voice.
Please skip me, she said. Yeah. We have any other citizens this morning? What's that? All right. We'll move on with the agenda, Rose.
All right, ordinances for final passage. Council file number 16172, official ordinance 28/2020, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $200,000 from an unappropriated and unanticipated revenue for the expenditure thereof. Contribution is from Gannon University. By Mr. Winarski, second by Mr. Brzezinski, the council file ordinance bill number 16172, and now known as official file ordinance 28/2020, be finally passed by the city council. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Brzezinski, Mr. Keys, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. City council passed official file ordinance number 28/2020, finally, by yeas 7, nays 0. Council file 16173, official ordinance number 29/2020, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $1,746,700 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue to be received from bond proceeds and utilized in the City of Erie Business Development Fund. By Ms. Schaaf, second by Ms. Allen, that council file ordinance bill number 16173, and now known as official file ordinance number 29/2020, be finally passed by the city council. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Brzezinski, Mr. Keys, Ms. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. City council passed official file ordinance number 29/2020, finally by yeas 7, nays 0. Council file 16174, official ordinance number 30/2020. An ordinance requiring after-hours clubs, bottle clubs, and dance clubs to be licensed and inspected on an annual basis. By Ms. Allen, second by Ms. Schaaf, that council file ordinance bill number 16174, and now known as official file ordinance number 30/2020, be finally passed by the city council. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Brzezinski, Mr. Keys, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. City council passed official file ordinance number 30/2020, finally by yeas 7, nays 0. Ordinances for first reading. Council file 16175, an ordinance amending ordinance numbers 26/1958, the traffic code of the city of Erie by the installation of a stop sign at one intersection, West 25th Street and Myrtle Street, stopping at Myrtle Street. By Mr. Witherspoon and second by Mrs. Schaaf, the council file ordinance number 16175, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the city council. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Brzezinski, Mr. Keys, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. City council read and adopt council file ordinance number 16175 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Excuse me. Council file 16176, an ordinance in accordance with the 2020 City of Erie budget sum of $5,000 is appropriated from unappropriated and unanticipated revenue. These funds have been contributed by the Erie Council of Governments to the City of Erie General Fund for use in the 2020 census marketing campaign. By Mrs. Schaaf, second by Ms. Allen. The council file number 16176 having been read is hereby adopted on first reading by the city council. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Brzezinski, Mr. Keys, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. City council read and adopt council file ordinance number 16176 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Council file 16177, an ordinance amending Article 117 of the City of Erie's Administrative Code to establish a Department of Planning and Neighborhood Resources and identifying the functions of the department. By Mr. Winarski, second by Mr. Brzezinski, the council file ordinance number 16177 having been read is hereby adopted on first reading by the city council. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Brzezinski, Mr. Keys, Ms. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. City council read and adopt council file number 16177 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading.
Thank you, Dora.
That'll take us into new business.
President,
Yes, sir.
move the bills.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And is there any separations?
Mr. President, if I could do number 1, new business.
Yes, sir.
All right, moving the balance of the agenda. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Keys, Ms. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. Before we read that resolution, I just want to note that on the agenda under purchase orders number 3, that is actually not on this agenda. I think it was copied and pasted over from the last agenda. So that is not in the business at this time.
Great, thank you.
Okay. By Mr. Brennan and seconded by Ms. Allen, a resolution in support of online accessibility of the City of Erie Board and
Thanks,
Authority information for public understanding, input, and participation. Whereas the City of Erie wishes to further its commitment to expanding diversity, equity, and inclusion in government to provide varied perspectives and generate better ideas to help solve the complex problems of a changing, increasingly diverse world. And whereas City of Erie government relies greatly on the volunteer assistance from citizens from all walks of life to become involved and make a contribution to our community by serving on City of Erie boards and authorities. And whereas the management of boards and authorities involve tracking the seats that are currently vacant, terms that are set to soon expire, terms set to expire within a year, and terms that have expired but still have members serving in a holdover status. And whereas some boards and authorities may require special areas of expertise, while others, a general public perspective from good hardworking citizens is to carry out their taxpayer-funded mission for benefiting the public good. And whereas, sorry, the City of Erie seeks to establish a transparent online resource that could provide information to candidates looking to serve on both City of Erie boards and commissions, feature an online interface to apply for and to find both current and future vacancies. And whereas such an online tool will make it easier for elected officials to identify a larger pool of candidates, expand the diversity of potential candidates, give citizens a greater understanding of the roles of these authorities and boards, their missions, and the clarity on who is designated to make decisions on the public's behalf. And whereas Pennsylvania cities such as Allentown, Harrisburg, Reading, as well as Lancaster County have already taken this important step to enhance public access, understanding, and opportunity to volunteer. Therefore, being resolved by the City Council of the City of Erie that a plan is to be formulated before the 2021 City of Erie budget passing for the online presentation of all boards and authorities, links to their websites, their bylaws, their mission, a current list of appointees, the listing of all vacancies online, and a web-based application system for potential candidates. Discussion?
Yes, Mr. President, I just wanted to make a quick comment.
Certainly.
Yeah, I know it was a long resolution, so I think it was pretty self-explanatory, but just to kind of review a couple of the main points of this resolution, I think it'll help us with our diversity and board representation, identifying a larger pool of candidates. Some positions, as we noted, require various areas of expertise. I think it'll help inclusion in government, definitely help educate a lot of people on the authorities and what they do and what the decisions they make on our behalf. And also enhance transparency by publicizing these current appointments, using the latest technology, which the administration's been doing already for the appointment of the historic task force and for other positions on the planning commission. They've already been doing the online resource. So this will definitely help continue in that same direction. And as noted, many other cities have been doing this for quite a long time. So there's ready access to see what these boards do and to learn more about what's happening in our city. So I think it'll be a benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Any other comments, Council?
I just want to thank David for putting together something I've been advocating since I came on council. He did it in a way that is clear, to the point, and follows best practices already adopted by the administration. Not that we're in total, we're now leading also. And I know county council had done this previously, although theirs may have fallen a little bit off the radar. So we just have to make sure that we explain to people the reason we're doing this is to look for that expertise, to make sure our boards reflect our population. So thanks, David, for fulfilling one of my things that I've been trying to track even since before I came on council, when I started going to meetings and I was making spreadsheets about the fact that there was very little diversity on the boards, and there were appointments that had expired. And then coming into council and trying to understand the mysteries of how certain council people got to appoint certain people to boards. So thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
roll call. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Ms. Brzezinski, Mr. Keys, Mr. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. This will adopt 7-0. Also, we have a waive rules, and as you know, Lori, Marilyn, and I have been taking turns manning the office, and I think sometimes it's difficult with people working from home and emailing some of the business that has to be put on the agenda. So unfortunately, this got missed. So I apologize for that. It's a resolution to request the public hearing for a liquor license transfer. So voting to waive the rules, Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Brzezinski, Mr. Keys, Ms. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. By Mr. Winarski and second by Mr. Brzezinski. Resolved by the Council of the City of Erie, receiving the communication from Attorney John Mailer, 100 State Street, Suite 700, Erie, PA, requesting City Council approval for the transfer of PLCB liquor license of the M Cafe located at 5410 Westlake Road, Mill Creek Township, Erie, Pennsylvania. Atomic Bomb Group, LLC, for the premises located at 2306 State Street, Erie, Pennsylvania. is received, and the city clerk is hereby authorized and directed to advertise for public hearing in reference to the above matter on Wednesday, August 19th, 2020, at approximately 8 p.m. to hear testimony concerning the intermunicipal transfer of liquor license number R4948. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Ms. Brzezinski, Ms. Case, Ms. Shaw, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. That resolution will also adopt 7-0, and that will take us to committee reports, Mr. President.
Thank you. Ms. Shaw?
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate all that everyone does. We're living in a very sad time with the COVID pandemic and the bombing yesterday that was in Lebanon. And because of all the sadness, my report today is going to be thankfulness. So everything I'm going to say, I'm going to try to be positive. Thank you, Rose Boyer, for your commitment to the City Council and the City of Erie in doing your job faithfully for these many years. You have been with us not too long, but you have been with the City of Erie, I know, for over 40 years. So thank you for your effort and goodwill that you have for the city. Thank you, Darren Hart, for your presence today at the caucus meeting. You have brought to light issues. Thank you to people who are wearing masks during this COVID crisis to assist people in not spreading the disease. Thank you to our EMT and first responders and anyone out there as far as the nurses and everyone that is an essential worker. Thank you very much. Thank you to the people driving in their automobiles who go the speed limit and who stop for pedestrians and who obey the traffic signs. Thank you. Thank you to the people who pick up litter that can be very ugly to look at, unsanitary. Thank you to all of you. Thank you to the people who have courtesy in opening doors and helping people along the way. Thank you to the people who are checking on their loved ones or neighbors and know people who need an extra lifting up. Thank you to all of you. Thank you to the people who are doing the census. We need that urban core. We need the people to fill out the census. Usually in Perry Square and at our library, there are people who will assist you in filling out the census. So if you can't do it at home, go to the park or the library. Thank you. Thank you to the Public Works Department. My husband was driving around the other day and he's like, every other street's getting repaved. So thank you to the those new streets. Those are really nice, not hitting the potholes and everything. And thank you to people who have gardens and are sharing their fruits of their labor. Thank you to the funeral homes that go above and beyond during this very sad time. The funeral directors and the funeral care home people are really doing a great job of making people feel a bit peaceful during this very sad time. Thank you to people who are filling out the surveys that are online. And thank you all. There's a beautiful mural going up on 7th and State Street that focuses on the woman suffrage movement and how powerful it is to vote. So thank you to those of you who are being movers and shakers and lifting people up. Have a great day.
Thank you, Ms. Schaaf, for being a great council person and great vice president. Miss Allen. Can she hear me?
I attended the Erie County Land Bank meeting, and there were lots of properties that the board acted on. Most of them will be demolished, but a few will be rehabbed and put back on the market. The conditions of those houses, both the interior and the exterior, were really appalling. I believe that with the reorganization that will occur under the new planning department, we will make significant progress to stop blight, to fix code violations before properties are allowed to become uninhabitable, and hopefully have those properties remain on the tax rolls and also be available for rehab and purchase. I've also seen several letters to the editor on the proposed civilian review board claiming that somehow people without expertise will be named to the board. I think by approving David Brennan's resolution on transparency in all board appointments, we have made clear that we are committed to having representatives with the right skills appointed to various boards in Erie. We will have the same standards for the proposed civilian review board. I think I got particular chuckle from the person who said that I was anti-authority. And I do want to make clear that the email from Father Jerry Proscaro referred to a, quote, expert. And if you actually clicked on the link, it would take you to something called the National Center for the Study of the Constitution, which is a right-wing extreme organization with ties to the John Birch Society. So that is not the kind of expertise that I would be relying on to create a civilian review board. I think it's really important that we're having a study session. We're having a study session on body cameras. That is not the same thing as a civilian review board. We need to have an agenda for how we're going to move forward on this. Many other cities and city councils have responded in positive fashion to the horrible killing of George Floyd. And we seem to be spinning our wheels saying, well, we're doing this or we're doing that. I will repeat what I say every chance I get at a council meeting. We have been talking about having a civilian review board for decades in Erie. The council chambers where some of you are sitting, the rest of us are Zooming from home, are named after Mario Bagnoni, a retired Erie police detective who supported the idea of a citizens review board. So I really think we need to, I don't want to find that at the end of December, we're still sitting here and talking about this. So I'm sticking to what I believe we need to do, and council needs to make a commitment, and we need to show that we are in line with reviewing police practices and making citizens feel like they have a forum to go to. I always have complimented the administration on the Citizen Response Center. It is, Maz Sala is great in that position, and the function of that office is also amazing. I sent Maz 2 questions. I think after the last council meeting, he immediately followed up on that with the citizens. It relieves some of not responsibility, but some of the function of city council where we felt like we had to go it alone to resolve citizen complaints. What a great idea that we have a central place for citizen questions and responses. And I think one of the other things that is happening with this Citizen Response Center is that we're generating data on where are the issues. Similar thing could happen with the Civilian Review Board. That's my report.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Mr. Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just wanted to thank council members, administration, and also the input we got from the chamber and the young area professionals on the authority's resolution. There's other support and other input that I received also, so I just wanted to thank everybody for that, and just looking forward to see the benefit to our city. Erie Parking Authority, there's a board meeting next Tuesday, so nothing to report there. The third item I had was, thank you, Darren Hart, for coming to speak at council about the burning issues in the city. We definitely appreciate your knowledge on this subject, and we definitely want to do what's best for our city. We know there's a lot of people do the right thing, but if we could do anything that makes it even better, we're want to do that. Just wanted to make one comment about the past resolution we had for the street naming, code naming. I'm working on a process for that, and I'll share it with council, kind of an arrangement of how we could possibly do this. Again, I'm trying to keep it very simple. Again, this is just the renaming for dedication of streets. It should be a very simple process, but at least we want to come up with some type of process, and I'll look for input from council members. And if any council member has input, please let me know. And last item I had is to also comment on the Citizens Police Review Board. In regard to the comments that we did receive in the city about the mayor and the chief and council being taken out of that process, that would not be what would be happening. Of course, it needs to be designed, what's best for our city, but the chief and the mayor would have the final say, from what I believe would be the process. It wouldn't be taken out of the mayor's and the chief's and council's hands. So I just wanted to address that. And again, it has to be designed. Various cities do different things, but just wanted to address that aspect of the two critiques that we had received. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Mr. Witherspoon, you with us?
Yes, I am, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I would like to thank Kathy Shaw for her outstanding love for our community and all the work she does beyond the homeless, and she's just a fantastic person. And Kathy, you just keep doing what you do and continue to be yourself. Thank you. Mr. President, I will be participating in a march on Saturday. We are trying to put together at least 100 Black men to march through our community. And we want to work with our young people, the 16 up to 28, 30. We're going to start around, I guess it's around 23rd, 24th in Parade. And we're just going to go through our community and talk to these young men and try to show them another way other than shooting each other for whatever reason. There has to be another way. And it's not organized by me. I'm just going to plan to participate with it, with the organizers. No, I'll leave it for another time. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Witherspoon. Mr. Keys. Your mute button, Mike. Michael, your mute button.
Yes, Mr. President, I do have a comment about the Civilian or Citizens Review Board. I agree with Ms. Allen that we need to pick up the pace on resolving what the city would like to do and move forward. I'd just like to extend my condolences to the two families that lost their loved ones this week. And I just, hopefully we're going toward a new normal, but hopefully we will have more normalized relations and exchanges of information. Would make it easier for city government to handle its business and move forward. That would be my hope. And so I just like to thank everyone for all that they have done.
Thank you, Mr. Keys. Mr. Brzezinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Everybody's talking about the Billions Review Board. You know, we have a process in place right now that works. It's a little bit slower than most people want to know. And maybe people feel there's a transparency lacking. You know what? I think you can talk to the chief, you can talk to the mayor, and get right from the horse's mouth what's going on. The process works. It is a process, and things can't be settled until we have all the facts. And so I'm not saying that things can't be made better, but let's not, trash a process that is working. If you have questions, if you can't get to the chief, get to me, I'll get to the chief, and I'll get you the answers you need. Other than that, Kathy, I'd like to thank you again and everybody else who's working hard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brzezinski. Only comment I have this morning mainly has to do with our mid-year shortfall. We're looking at a $3.5 million shortfall, or up to 3.5. It's going to take what I believe us on council, with the administration, with all the department heads, as well as the departments, to try to cut into that shortfall. We have some very critical finance meetings coming up here in the future, including after this meeting. And then come budget time, that's going to be another major process once again for us. On our agenda today, we're developing, or we're voting on, a new department. Sounds great. I like the foresight of it. I just want to know what the financial impact is going to have on the rest of this year's budget as well as next year's budget. Can we actually save some money on this, or is it going to cost the city more money? Unfortunately, a lot of everything we do comes down to the dollar, and the last thing we do is want to come to our citizens and talk about a fee increase or a tax increase. We need to do a little more homework in-house, not just council, but the administration and the departments, to look out for everybody in this city. Once again, we got some work to do. I believe we can cut into that if we do our job. A lot of things council can do, we can suggest, but it's going to take a lot of the administration and the departments to step it up on their end to help us in this. But with that, I'd like to ask Ms. Lamus if she has anything to say this morning.
Good morning, council. Thank you. I have a few things to touch on today. First, I think is the most important is the census, which we've talked a little bit about during caucus. For anybody who's following along, unfortunately, the White House and Congress would not agree to the U.S. Census Bureau's request to extend the deadline. The U.S. Census Bureau is required by law to submit the results of the census by December 31st. Their request to extend that was denied, and so they had to pull back their outreach efforts. The deadline for the census is now September 30th instead of October 31st. So we just lost a month. This is pretty scary for us because right now in the city, we're only at about 61.6% self-reporting. And because of COVID-19, the census takers have not been able to go door to door yet. So this has been very frustrating. We've been trying to get the word out at the city with our marketing campaign. We are stepping that up. We've been brainstorming the last few days. And what we're doing, we're going to be communicating this on radio and social media, but we've also created a door hanger. And we're now mobilizing groups within the urban core, our community centers, our clergy, our neighborhood groups to get out and get these door hangers out. And so what these are, and everything's going to be backwards, but this is what they look like. And so what we're doing is we're going to be having, we're going to extend our weekly drawing for $100 in gift cards to local restaurants and businesses in the city. So those will be weekly drawings that occur on Mondays, and those will go through September. And then at the end, this will culminate in a drawing for a grand prize of $1,000 in cash. Thanks to a grant we received, we're able to do that. We're hoping that this will incentivize those who have not completed the census to complete it. We have approximately, within the urban core, within our census tracts that are the lowest performing, it's about 13,000 households within those census tracts. We don't know who's completed it and who hasn't, but we know that less than 50% of people have. So we're going to try to get out and get those door hangers placed on as many of those doors as possible. And if we can get that done, then maybe we'll do some additional doors as well. For more information to enter to win, people can go to censuserie.com, and that will take them to the city's website. We have a page set up that explains how to enter the contest. But just quickly, people can go online, complete the census, take a photo of their confirmation code, and then send us an email with their name, their city of Erie address, their phone number, and the screenshot of their confirmation code so that we can see that they did complete the census, and then they'll be entered to win. The sooner they enter, the more opportunities they will have to win. So that's really important initiative that we want to get the word out about. Second, we've been busy. Our deadline for submitting our case to the Human Rights Campaign for the Municipal Equality, or for the Municipal Equality Index was July 31st. And so we spent a lot of time getting a lot of data together about the things that we've been doing in the past year. And we should have our new MEI scores sometime in November. Also, I want to thank everybody for the passage on the Department of Planning and Neighborhood Resources. Just to address President Winarski, this should be cost neutral. This is a matter of moving departments and shifting focus, not of adding personnel. Also, want to emphasize the study session on the body worn cameras that Ms. Allen mentioned is tomorrow night. That's Thursday night at 5:30. Chief Spazzarni will be going over the process that they went through in determining how to move forward with body worn cameras, and also the protocol that's been laid out moving forward and next steps. And then also on August 13th, there will be a study session with council at 5:30 on the Bayfront Parkway with PennDOT. I also want to recognize the mural going up on the Hands building in honor of the 100th anniversary of the women's right to vote, which was granted August 18th, 1920. And that wonderful team of women artists out there doing an amazing job on that mural. I encourage people to come down and take a look. We're looking forward to working with you all on fostering diversity, equity, and inclusion on with our appointments to authorities, boards, and commissions. And finally, just in regard to COVID-19, for those who've been paying attention, we've been experiencing quite a surge the last few days, and we just ask people, This is going to be a long haul until there's a vaccine. Please, if you're going out, wear a mask, practice social distancing. Be sure to wash your hands and sanitize your hands regularly. And if you're feeling the least bit sick, if you don't feel well, if you're fatigued, if you have a sore throat, a cough, please don't go out. Just stay home. So we just want to encourage people. We can beat this thing, but we need everybody to chip in and work together on it. So that's all I have today. Thanks.
Hey,
Thank
Ray, another question?
Oh, we have a,
If I
sure,
may?
yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
Just thinking outside the box. Mr. Witherspoon mentioned about the 100 black men walking the areas in 24th and Parade. Maybe you could hook up with those folks and send some census people along the way. You might be able to pick up quite a few, especially when the folks see their kind of people walking down the street with them. I wish they'd invite me, I'd go too. But anyway, I just thought it might be something that would work.
Okay, I'll be
How
happy
would
to
you
talk.
think?
Yeah, I'll be happy to talk to Councilman Witherspoon about that. We have printed 6,000 door hangers so far, but we're planning to print more. So we'll get them out to as many people as we can. Thank you.
Just a thought, okay.
Thank you. Mr. Betza, any comments this morning?
No, sir.
All righty, I think with that, we can adjourn our meeting and we'll give it 5 minutes, then we'll start our finance meeting. Thank you all.
City Council adjourns at 9:58. Mr. Winarski, Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Brzezinski, Mr. Keys, Ms. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon.
There, I didn't recognize you with that.
Hello, Mr. President. Good morning, Mayor Joe. I believe we're waiting for council to be done with their news interviews.
No problem. Thanks, Kathy.
Kathy, just one thing I didn't want to say it in front of the whole meeting, but that explosion in Lebanon was the alleged commander-in-chief called it a bomb. It was likely an accident and not a bomb. Just so you know, so you don't, amplify his incorrect assessment. So
Thank you, Liz.
Okay.
I didn't really delve into it too much as far as the information. So I
It's
appreciate that. Thank you.
undetermined so far, but I had just checked the Washington Post while you were talking, and I mean, that's the kind of thing, not you, but the person who is the president of our country should not say things like that off the cuff without any type of proof. So
They were storing some type of chemical there, but they weren't supposed to keep that much in quantity.
yeah, it's still a horrible tragedy. I mean,
Absolutely.
I forget what the casualties are up to now.
We almost need a study session every Thursday. There's so much on our plates right now.
You're right. And we have those public hearing on the liquor license and our ordinance, right? Separate
Yeah,
from the
that-
study
that's-
session.
That's why I
Correct.
proposed some type of a listing, because there's so many things that are out there right now.
Right. I think we need a calendar update just so we all remember all these things.
Right.
Mayor, are you going to present your water proposal as are you going to do a share screen for that?
You all should have a copy of what I'm going to present.
Right.
And that's basically what I'm going to do. Is
Okay.
go through that. So there's nothing additional I'm planning to present. Paul may have some additional things, Paul Lichtenwalder, but basically we're going to start with that, and we want to take as long as, you guys want to talk about it or have questions to go through it.
Okay, I just wondered, do we need to pull it up on email ourselves? I did look at it, or will you have it on the screen for us as we go through?
I was not planning to have it on the screen.
Okay, it was, I think, fairly easy to follow, so.
Okay, yeah. I tried to do it that way just to make it easy to understand and, and talk about, hopefully.
Did you send that to us today?
Yeah,
Yes, I sent it
got
this morning during
I think
the
at
council meeting.
9:30 it came.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the phone that I am using Zoom on is also the phone for my email. So I'll have to look at that after our meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, Mayor. I'm sorry.
Hello, Jim.
We were looking for you here. Paul said you might be going to be in council chambers.
Yeah, I wanted to do that, but your meeting got done so quickly, I didn't have time to get down there, so
But that's great. Thanks for joining us.
happy to do it.
You need
Jim, is everybody available at this time?
Excuse me?
Is everyone available at this time?
Yes, except we're trying to get a volume for our finance director, because I think I'm on. He can't be heard just yet,
Yeah.
and we want to make sure we can hear him.
He's muted right now. Paul, you're muted, so.
You're muted, Paul.
There.
Am I on now?
Yeah,
Yes.
you're good.
Sounds
Okay.
perfect.
That's fine.
Okay, Ms.
What about
Schaaf,
this thing?
you're up.
Thank you, everyone in attendance. Thank you, Paul. You're going to lead our meeting today. very important as we get closer to the end of the year. So I thank you for all your due diligence and patience with me as we go through these financial matters.
I enjoy the time we spend together. So I plan on at some point today going through the July revenue and expenditure reports, and then any follow-up questions that anybody had after the mid-year, which but at first the mayor wanted to say a few words. Kathy, you had asked this morning about the water deal, and the mayor has been, I'll be quiet and let him speak. So.
Okay. Thanks very much, Paul. And as I said earlier, you all did receive a copy of this as well. Just trying to explain it as clearly as possible. But I am very pleased to be with you to give you an overview of this proposed lease payment agreement that we negotiated with the Water Authority. I have also emailed each of you a copy of my remarks, so you have those to refer to later. After this brief presentation, Paul and I are prepared to go into as much or even more detail and answer all your questions. We're hoping that you feel comfortable voting on this proposal at your next meeting on Wednesday, August 19th. So the presentation is divided into 3 parts. First, I'll give you an overview of the terms of the proposed agreement. Second, I'll give you an explanation of how the money will be spent. And third, we'll review the positive impacts that the agreement will have on the city. So first, the terms of the proposed agreement. The Water Authority lease will be extended for 10 years to 2060. It expires now in 2050. That's one component of this. The Water Authority's payment to the city will continue to increase $200 every 5 years.
200,000.
The Water Authority will prepay its lease through 2060 by taking out a loan. So the Water Authority will get a loan. The annual payments on the Water Authority's loan will be the same as it's been paying annually to the city and is scheduled to pay annually to the city through 2060. If we close today, the Water Authority would pay the city $95 million. And of course, that's $5 million up from what we presented to you in November. The reason for that is interest rates are lower now than they were then. So you can get more money when you borrow. The 2019 budget deliberations, when we talked about it, rates were a little bit higher, but they are lower now. So we can get more money. If you approve this proposal, it will probably take at least 2 months to close the deal. If the interest rates change over those 2 months, we will receive a different amount, the amount we receive. And here's an estimate of how much that might fluctuate. Based on current short-term interest rate expectations, we think the maximum change will be, first, if rates go up, the amount we receive could be as low as 93 million. So we get about 2 million left if rates go up to what we think is the maximum over this period of time. But if rates go down to what we think would be the maximum over this period of time, the amount we receive could be as high as 97 million. And if we had done this back in March or early April, we actually would have got over 100 million because rates were so low back then. But that's the current range that we expect. There are 2 new parts to the proposed agreement that you'll be looking at. The Water Authority has agreed to pay the city an upfront closing fee of $2.5 million. And what we discovered through our research is that they've always paid a fee anytime their lease has been extended. And the last lease extension they had was for 10 years, and they paid $2.5 million for that. So we got that. So that's some additional funding coming in that we can use to help cover this year's deficit or for whatever purpose. Then, and second, the city has agreed to pay the Water Authority an additional $350,000 per year. And the reason for that is to help them offset their additional reserves that they're required because of this new loan they have on their books. They're required to set aside actually about $900,000 more than they'd be required without the loan. But they've agreed if we give them this help that they'll do it. Okay, so next, just want to talk about how the Water Authority money will be spent, at least what we're proposing here. So the $95 million payment for the Water Authority, we'll set aside $15 million of that And it's basically to help us manage deficits over the next 3 years, this year, 2021 and 2022. And we believe with 15 million set aside for that purpose, we will not need to do any tax increases for the next 2 years. The entire remaining $80 million will be used to pay down existing debt. Finally, and probably most importantly, here are the benefits that the prepayment of the lease will have to the city. And there's 4 different ones. And these benefits go through 2039. So it's about 19 years. First, it will help us cover the probable 2020 budget deficit of 3.3 million caused by COVID-19. So we will not have to dip into our $10 million reserves or have to raise taxes on Erie residents at all. Second, doing this will eliminate any foreseeable need for any kind of tax increase, at least through the 2022 budget. Third, it reduces the amount of interest we will pay on our debt for the next 19 years by almost $92 million, just under that. And the exact amount's on your sheet. Fourth, it helps city finances by reducing our debt payments by at least $1 million more than the annual revenue from the Water Authority lease payment over the next 19 years. So there's $1 million a year benefit over the next 19 years because of our reduced debt, even though we lose the Water Authority lease payment over that period of time. So I really thank you all for considering what I think is a transformative proposal that we are making. It will benefit the people of Erie for decades to come. Much of what we're presenting today was recommended and fully supported by PFM back in 2019, as you'll recall. We look forward to talking this through with you in great detail over the next 2 weeks. And now I want to open the floor to any questions you may have or anything that Paul would like to add. Thanks very much.
I think my main concern is that, while I understand the financial pressure we're on for this year, I really thought that this wasn't supposed to be to prop up the budget and to fill those holes. I will only vote for this if I also see that there is a commitment on the part of the administration to also reduce costs for 2020. Otherwise, I'm just kind of appalled that we haven't had a proposal from the administration of how you are going to rein in costs other than cutting travel, which isn't going on now anyhow. I mean, I appreciate all the hard work here. I've asked a lot of questions about this, but I think that taxpayers are going to be able to see through this and say, oh, wait a minute, you just found a source of money to you know, make up for the deficit. So I really want to see, however you do it, you can use the old cliche of sharpening your pencil to see what else you're going to do for 2020 to tighten the budget. I mentioned at the city council meeting this morning that I think it's incumbent on city council to do our own job with this. So it's necessary, but I don't think that that should be the only step that is taken to deal with the deficit this year. My second question is, I think we did get a copy of the full valuation report, but if we didn't, Paul, can you make sure that we got a copy of that? I know we got the cover letter, but I'd like to look at that valuation. And my third thing is, who or which institution is going to benefit from the financial transaction that has to occur? Is this already a done deal where a favorite bank and or law firm is going to do this, or are you going to go out for bids to make sure that we're getting the best best available expenditure on that? So, because we know that somebody is going to be getting some additional money from this. So three questions. Can we get the full valuation? Can we find out what else the administration is going to do to rein in costs for 2020? And then how is the, whatever has to occur between them getting the loan and, doing the prepayment for us, what guarantees do we have that is going to be bid instead of just awarded as professional services.
Liz, the first question, we've reduced costs about $1 million is our expectation this year based on things we've done. And Paul can go over those in some detail when he reviews the budget with you after we're done talking about this. In terms of who benefits, it's not our decision about that. The Water Authority is the one getting the lease. So I'm not sure what their plans are, but we could certainly ask them about that. The city is not doing the lease. The Water Authority is doing the lease and giving us the money. That's our involvement, basically. Paul, is there anything you want to add to that?
Frank, can you unmute, or I am unmuted?
You're left.
You're muted. You're muted. You're still muted.
Unmute.
Good.
Okay. The Water Authority, as they just issued a bond about 6 months or 8 months ago, did bid out their underwriting fees as we did a year ago. And they have a couple underwriting firms that they're using, that they're helping them. The underwriting firms are helping the Water Authority with this transaction as we speak. So this has already been handled on their end. And as the mayor said, because they're the ones selling bonds, the refunding, this is their transaction.
Okay.
So they've already done their due diligence there.
What other questions?
I guess have we had some information on that? So we still have a over $3 million deficit accounting for the $1 million, or can someone clarify that? Have we had documentation of how where those savings have occurred?
In your mid-year, that information's in the mid-year report.
And yes.
So what is our deficit for 2020 right now?
In the neighborhood of sorry, Mayor.
It's okay. Go ahead, Paul.
In the neighborhood of $3.5 million.
So you're saying if we hadn't saved $1 million, we'd be 4.5 million?
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
And we're still looking for ways to save. We have replaced some people that have left. Overtime's been down. Vacation time's been down. There's a lot of different areas that both revenue and expenses are down, which Paul can go through again when he goes through that budget with you. Any other questions or comments about the proposal here with the Water Authority?
Thank you, Mayor. Paul, what would the taxes increase without the proposal? How much would we have to get the citizens to pay?
Well, without the proposal, remember, I'm just going to harken back to the budget book when we did the 5-year projections. And we were about $2.5 million short with the 5-year projections going into 2021 when we passed the budget and presented the budget back in November. And that's about 3/4 of a mil of tax. Whether or not we use reserves to balance this year's budget really doesn't have an effect on next year. It only has an effect on cash in bank at the end of 2020. So if we were to start the budget anew, the budget sessions anew right now, not taking into account some of the problems there may be with taxes due to COVID moving forward. We don't know where the unemployment rate's going to be. That 3/4 of a mil number is a pretty good starting point. Does that answer, Kath? Or?
Yes, for this year.
Well, no, for next year.
For 2021.
For 2021, correct. And that's taking into account that we're using fund balance or cash in bank to balance, to make up the balance of the budget this year. And remembering the reason we have this money in the bank is for a time frame. There's an 11-year time frame where we had positive balances in the general fund year after year after year, where we built that money up.
Thank you, Paul.
Paul and Mayor, I do have a question. I know in the past, we always try to think of some creative ideas to bring in new income. Has there been any thoughts there? And again, I know it's tough to do. You know, we've had many attempts at trying to do that. And again, we want to try to be comparable to other cities and not charge more than we have to. Any other thoughts there or discussion?
Yeah, I know that Kathy Rosdick has been working on an assessment for sewer availability, which would apply not just to taxpayers, but to nonprofits as well. So anyone using the sewer system would pay a certain fee. Renee, you're muted.
Stormwater.
Stormwater. I'm sorry, stormwater. Thank you.
Okay.
It will be a fee to process stormwater. So there's a study going on for that. We should get a recommendation. I don't know if it'll be this year or is it supposed to be the end of this year, Renee? Yes. Okay. So and obviously that's something we'll consider. We'll bring to you to look at and think about. I think it was like over $1 million in revenue. Is that right? Does anybody remember, Paul or Renee?
If everything, yes, that's
Yeah.
what the initial projections were, if it could be budgetarily done the way the consultant wants to do it.
And we think a lot of people probably won't like it either. You'll probably get a lot of negative about, because it's not a tax, it's a fee, but it's still something people have to pay. But that's probably the largest thing I can think of that we're looking at now as another source of revenue.
And in my really the question was trying to get at not to add more fee to our citizens, but to other outlying municipalities, given that we have a lot of the infrastructure and it does take a lot of cost to maintain them.
I don't know of any other way we can do that, because we can't charge them more than we charge City of Erie residents on income tax, which is the one source. And we increased that this year quite a bit.
One of them was the flow that we get for the wastewater plant, that we've been using this formula from the 70s possibly.
Before that,
Is there anything to relook at there that could be more beneficial to the city as a whole and let the outlying municipalities pay?
I'm
You're saying we're still getting the best deal.
based on the contracts that are in place, other than us sitting down and renegotiating those contracts, having all 7 of the municipalities that take part in the DEP and the Environmental Protection Agency, and there's a 3rd regulatory agency. I mean, everybody would have to sit down at the same table and say, the city's getting the short end of the stick here. Let's renegotiate these contracts, and everybody would have to agree to it too. Yeah, it's not a great deal from the start, but that goes back 50, 60 years ago. So.
Yeah, and again, Paul, I'm just trying to think of a fair share. I'm not trying to
Right.
penalize anybody and be
No,
unfair.
and David, as we all look at the budget handout book every year, and one of the last couple pages in that budget handout book is we show all the revenues, what revenues other cities are collecting that we don't collect. And I'm not one to say $50,000 or $20,000 isn't a lot of money, but the things that, do we want to raise our, please nobody throw stones at me because I have a dog, but do we want to raise the dog license fees by $1 and collect another $5,000? Or do we want to, raise this one by 2% to collect something else? I mean, the big ticket, as the mayor mentioned, the income taxes, the big ticket items, your real estate taxes, your income taxes, our building permit fees, those things are all about maxed out. I mean, the building fees, Andy showed council a couple years ago, because we sat in on it with them when they did comparisons between what it costs to build a house in Erie, Mill Creek, Harbor Creek, Allentown, Scranton. We did local, we did all around the state, and our building fees are right in line with what everybody else is charging. So, the mayor's LERTA program's been pretty good to start with. So if we don't want to price ourselves out of the market there, you know, a lot of our other budgetary revenue line items are, you know, the state reimbursements. Well, there's nothing we can do to get more money from the state. I mean, the liquid fuels money and the alcohol beverage tax money and the state aid we get for the pension, that's set in stone by state ordinances. You know, our reimbursements from CDBG and the Housing Authority. I know, you know, we've talked about the fact we're having a little bit of a problem with HUD where that might even be cut next year. You know, our bank interest rates, we shop the banks and we talk to all 6 or 7 of the banks up and down State Street, constantly moving money to make sure we're getting the best interest rates. So I'm not saying there's not a nickel to be found under a rock, but it's not like there's, you know, we're going to be able to find $4 million somewhere. I mean, it's been proposed in the past. People have brought up the business mercantile tax. Well, the city of Erie is not eligible, you know, eligible to charge that tax. So there's just things ordinance-wise and state law-wise we can do and not do. And David, I've just gone on and on. I'm sorry about that, but we're always looking. It's just not as easy. And as you know, I mean, on 6 years of council, you've looked. Again, you've looked under every rock you can look under, and we're just not, you know.
I want to say I did not look under a rock. I looked on page 86 of the PFM report. Again, another thing I've asked about, which nobody has responded to, PFM report recommended hiring outside counsel for the contract negotiations. All those emails we got, even though they were form emails talking about the percentage of Erie's budget that goes to public safety, you don't have to say whether you believe in Black Lives Matter or a citizen review board. Fiscally, those contracts are hurting us. So what happened to this recommendation? I don't want to just talk about finding new sources of revenue. How are you going to control cost? What has anybody responded to the recommendation on page 86 of the PFM report about how the costs are unsustainable? We have a contract that's coming up at the end of the year with the FOP. What are you doing to address cost containment as opposed to finding new sources of revenue? Has anybody read this report? How do you respond to that? And if you are not following that recommendation, why not?
The main thing we've done based on that recommendation is in our negotiations with labor unions, which, as you know, we negotiate with one a year. We had the firefighters last year. And what we did with them was, up to this point for the last 10 years or so, everybody's got 3% salary increases every year.
Mayor, they still got raises. You can say
No,
they
didn't.
still got, yes, you got the zero, but they still got increases because of longevity. That's not what the report said. The report said, bring in independent labor counsel. Have you brought in independent labor counsel? That's my question. And if the answer is no, then I just know that you aren't following that recommendation. Just tell me yes or no. I know about the 0%, but that doesn't solve the issue. Did you bring in outside labor counsel? Yes or no? Yes or no?
I said no.
Okay, why not?
Okay, but go ahead, Paul.
Mr. Betts negotiated a 0% raise. That's pretty good.
Right.
But that's
PFM
not the
also
same as following this recommendation.
Okay, I can't talk. Okay.
Liz, please let Paul finish.
PFM recommended one of their sister companies to be the legal team to come in and help us. Mr. Betts negotiated a 0% raise. That's pretty good.
You're going to fall back on that argument. And can we let the citizens know that it was a 0% raise, but they still got an increase? And it didn't have to be PFM's sister company. Once again, you could have gone out. This tells me you are not serious about reining in our biggest expense, which is salaries, and especially for public safety employees. We just wasted the state's money in having that report done, as far as I'm concerned.
Moving on to another question.
Sure, go ahead.
If COVID-19, we anticipating any kind of money from the feds or the state? They're throwing money all over the place.
To help offset.
We've,
I'm just wondering.
the finance department, along with Abby, our grant writer, we've applied for multitudes of reimbursements. We're up to a couple $100,000 in reimbursements for things we've bought, money we've spent. We haven't seen the finality of what the county's notice yesterday was, so we might get some money there. I can't answer and say yes right now. We're going to get X amount, but we are anticipating getting some money.
One thing I'd add to that is the county, as you all know, got like $42 million. It was federal money through the state that came to the county. And I think it was in the paper today or yesterday, how they're spending that money. And only 1.2 million of it is going to local municipalities in Erie County. The rest of it's all, you can see it in the paper where it's going. But since we're about a third of the population of the county, I expect we'll get about 400,000 of that 1.2 million, which again, doesn't solve our problems, but it's a step in the right direction.
Okay. Mayor, back to the proposal. One thing that does stand out to me is the additional $350,000 per year we're going to be paying them.
Right.
And you take that over 30 more years up to 2060, that's a chunk of change there that offsets what they're giving us, really.
You did.
That was a lot of negotiation about that. I can tell you I wasn't happy with that either. But they were not willing to do the deal without it, bottom line. And
this is almost like the degradation fees. They'll pay those, but you pay us this to offset those degradation fees, I guess.
Right.
Is what it's in black and white.
Yes, that's the bottom line.
That one sticks out a little bit and bothers me with this one. I know we have down, just put the remaining 80 million to pay down our debt. Is there any other options like water reserve? I know it would take a super majority of council on how that money is spent, but at least we could possibly still pay down some debt, still get some interest to help offset the yearly lease payment we would be losing. I'm just wondering if there's different ways to work the numbers instead of putting a bulk 80 million down into debt reduction.
I mean, I think the most cost-effective way to do it is put the 80 million down, because the amount we're paying on the debt is going to be far more than we can earn on any other return, type of return, without taking significant risk, which we aren't willing to do. If you invest in the stock market, you might be able to earn more, but you could lose some too. So we would probably be investing in treasury bills or CDs and earning less than 1%.
Can I speak to that, Mayor?
Go ahead, Paul.
Okay. One of the things, pretty much half of the debt that we're going to pay down is refundable bonds, and the other half or so, give or take percentages, is non-refundable bonds, which is going to be put in escrow accounts. And those escrow accounts are going to be, as the mayor said, that's going to be invested in T-bills, because that's what the rules and the laws say you have to put that money into. But as we move forward year after year after year, some of those other bonds are going to become refundable. And at that point in time, we can take the money out of the T-bills and put it into something else to refund those other bonds. So
in 30 years, you don't think we're going to be taking out any other bond as a city?
I mean, I know I'm going to try not to, but I won't be
I'm
here
just-
this
We would hope
year.
not. We would hope not to.
And if-
I mean, are we going to need fire trucks? Yes. But as the mayor said, I mean, are we going to try to find other ways and other options to do those things? Yes.
I mean, I guess there's still more discussion and before I just go and vote on this.
Sure.
Just because this is a big decision for not only this council, but for the city of Erie for many years to come.
Yes.
I'm not trying to hold it off, but we want to do it right.
Absolutely.
I don't want the quick fix to say we're covering any tax increase for the next 3 years. What happens in 4, 5, and 6 years?
And we can show you that.
15 million that we set aside.
I would also like to implore my colleagues to please go back and read that PFM report. I'm going to read from page 88. When a new police officer is hired, he or she starts with a salary that is 60% of the Class A officer, step 1. Upon the completion of the first 18 months of service, the police officer moves to step 2 with a salary equivalent to 75% of a Class A officer. On completion of 36 months of service, the police officer reaches the top step with a salary equivalent to 100% of a Class A officer. The combined impact of those two types of wage increases is much higher than the across-the-board increase that is often cited in wage pattern descriptions. So when the mayor says, and this does show that the firefighters got 0 in that contract, I am begging my council members. I know you didn't pay attention when I asked you to look at the municipal clerk description. I know you don't pay attention to me most of the time. I'm asking you to pull out your documents and please read that and press the administration on why they are not following these recommendations. If you look at this, you're going to find out that we have long-term troubles. And we aren't supposed to be plugging those by dipping into the proceeds from the water authority extension of the lease. At one time you were talking about putting aside some of that money. I know that things have changed now with Chris Groner being under the county's umbrella, but there was actually talk about transformative changes. I don't consider it transformative to be plugging a budget hole with that money, and also to only talk about how can we find additional sources of revenue. Wait till taxpayers find out about that wastewater management fee. I know Mill Creek's thinking about doing it. How are you going to explain that to our constituents? I think it's probably a good idea from an environmental standpoint, but the mayor even said people aren't going to be happy about that. You disguise something as you package it as a fee instead of a tax. It's still coming out of the same checkbook or the same account. So I really, really am, here we are in August. I'm waiting for some type of a signal from the administration that you are going to do more than say that you saved $1 million. Some of those $1 million, you're right, Paul, you did talk about that, but it was, you got that money from the zoo thing and something else. It wasn't anything transformative. Tell us if you have a plan that you are not going to be filling vacant positions, update us on that. I went through a lot of years of working at a place where we got no raises for 8 years and we continually reinvented ourselves. Most businesses are like that. The city has to start thinking that way. So I'm going to check on your homework next time and see who has read that PFM section on collective bargaining. If anybody doesn't have it, I'm sure you can get a copy of it. Does anybody not have their copy of the PFM report? Anybody?
I don't.
You don't have it, Mel?
I don't think so. I may have it in this pile of papers. I have to look.
Miss Allen,
Looks like.
It's
Michael?
Alan. Yeah, I was gonna say was,
I got it.
Okay.
I
the
got it.
important thing
Is-
is that the contract is being negotiated right now. And there's a way for city council to weigh in on what the contract is gonna look like, because that is a critical part of how we move forward. Because whatever's in the contract, we have to pay those costs. And I was gonna, Mr. Betts has said that we could come down and look at what's going on. And I was gonna invite Mr. Brzezinski. And when it's set up, I'll invite you also. So,
Is there any other questions for the mayor regarding the water lease proposal? Or Paul regarding that at this time?
Well,
Mayor, you're-
I do have a question.
All right.
Since this wants to be out for a vote on August 19th, and it's August 4th or 5th today, whatever it is, 5th, is there a study session Thursday available to us that we could discuss this more than what we're doing right now?
Not before the 19th, Kathy. We have one already scheduled for the 6th and the 13th. But I agree with you that we should have just a study session regarding this, and with any potential ideas or thoughts on how we could adjust this if needed to be adjusted and still go through it, or if it's, what are the long-term effects? Is this a quick fix? What are the, there's more to it, but I believe we should have a study session on this also.
I have a
Would you-
question.
Yes,
They got to advertise.
Michael, do you have a question?
Yeah, my phone died, so you might have already covered it. But the consultant that we hired, did they have any other recommendations, like hybrid models of, like paying down half the debt and, putting out the numbers and comparing them, or if we pay down all the, use the whole 80, how that changes things, if they ran any other possible scenarios?
Yeah, I'd say we've actually run all those different scenarios. I think there were like 11 different scenarios, right, Paul, that we looked at. And this seemed to us like the best, given our current situation, the best approach to it. As far as a study session, what we could do, if it's okay with everybody, is, we have our 11 a.m. on Friday. We could change, it has to become public, of course, if it's a study session, but we could change that to a study session instead of a briefing that isn't open to the public. And we've got 2 Fridays between now and the next council meeting. It's important we kind of move quickly on this, because the longer we wait, the more rates could be going up and the less money we'd get.
Well, you did say it's also a 2-month process if and when it were to get passed, correct, Mayor?
Correct. Well, it's 2 months, including hopefully 2 weeks to get it passed. The longer we delay it, the more it shoves it out into the future. And the more risk we have of interest rates.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
of course, I can only speak for myself. I like the work that the administration has done, the time that they have put into negotiations, the different options that was presented. Personally, I'm ready to vote on it myself. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Witherspoon. Any other questions for the mayor? How about, Mayor, if it works for you, if we go with the 14th, that Friday? That'll give council some time to come up with some possible questions or additional questions they may have, and maybe use, if we can do it legally, use that Friday. I don't think we can call it a study session. We got to be careful on how we do it, I guess. That's where Mr. Betza can come in, and maybe we can use that Friday 11 a.m. time slot on the 14th. I don't know if we have Mr. Betza with us.
He's not. Do you have to advertise something like that for 2 weeks? Do you need 2 weeks?
That's where Mr. Betza comes in, or Rose, but
Rose might know that.
she's not in on the finance meeting right now. We could try to grab her.
Yeah, if you could, be good to know if we could do that.
If not, we could schedule small group meetings like we
Yes.
used to in the past so that we don't have a quorum.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
since there appears to be quite a few questions, I think it would be fair if the questions are written down and sent to the administration so they would have time to research the answers for the questions and then have the meeting, however we have it. They are able to have time to research that and give us the answers.
I have no problem with that. As I would ask that, along with those questions going to the administration, that they went to council members also,
Okay.
though, or all of
Good
council.
point. Good point. Because there may be duplicate questions. Good point, sir.
Ed's checking, or Eddie's checking with Rose to see if we have to actually advertise for that type of meeting.
Okay, good. I texted Ed Betza too. I'll let you know if he gets back to me.
Mayor, that 15 million you said to set aside to help us manage any deficit that may occur in 2021-22, I mean, I'll think positive, maybe we won't need totally $15 million. You know,
Yes.
I don't know if that 15 million would just go in the general fund, or where would that 15 million go so we don't use it all up in 20 or 21, say.
I'll let that, I think it does go to the general fund, but Paul, can you answer that? Paul?
Yes.
You're muted. You're muted.
You're muted, Paul.
Okay. When the deal is consummated, the council's going to have the final approval on that. So council will be able to have say on where the money goes, how it goes, and where it's spent. So you mentioned the water reserve, general fund, and an escrow account. Councilman Brzezinski mentioned money market accounts. I mean, wherever council feels that money should be kept, because if we get the money in October of 20 and we're not going to need it until the 22 budget, we have to put it somewhere for 2 years.
And it would probably be invested, right?
Yeah.
It would probably be invested in
Yes.
treasury bills or something.
Yes.
Or we'd be getting
Okay.
some return. And obviously council would have to approve any spending of that money. We can't just spend it.
No, because that'll be budgetary.
Right.
Rose told us that she can advertise at 11 o'clock on the 14th as a study session for the water thing. She said that all she
Okay.
had to do is advertise once.
I couldn't really hear Ed. He's muted, but
14th is good.
She can,
14th?
Rose
14th
said
is
she
good?
can advertise it as a study session
Great, great.
for 11.
Excellent. Thanks, Ed.
So we will make that happen.
So, and can I back up to what Mel said? Mel's question was statement was very good, because I'll have the Susquehanna Group people on the Zoom with us, and you know, we'll have the math and charts, graphs, and anything that you as a group ask for at that time, but you got to give me a couple, 3 days ahead of time.
Okay.
If any of you at any point, want to talk to me, please, you have my cell phone. Give me a call. Let's talk it through.
All right, Mayor. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. Now will Paul present the monthly report?
Okay. The July book, I think we sent it out a couple days ago. Those of you that are here today have a paper copy that you want to take a look at. The big things of note, and I don't know if anyone's got a chance to go through this yet, but I just wanted to go through the summary on page 2. You'll see that right now at this point in time, we have at the very bottom line an excess of revenues over expenditures, but our biggest expenses of the year are in the personnel benefits. We haven't paid the MMO yet. So that's why it always artificially looks like we're making more money at the beginning of the year than when it comes to October, November, and December. But backing up to the top, our tax collections are at about 73% of where we had budgeted, knowing that the real estate taxes come in earlier than the other taxes, which are normally equally divided out throughout the year. And I'll go through those in a little more detail when we get to the back. Otherwise, looking at most of the other things, our licenses are down a little bit. The building world was slowed down by the pandemic back in April and May, so we've had a little bit of a hard time with building permits. The grants, it looks as though we've collected a very, very small amount of the grants, but our state aid for the pension is in that grant line item, so that money will be coming in pretty soon. Going down the traffic fines, maybe next month at the Finance Committee meeting after we've been working on the delinquent program a little bit longer, Lisa can come down and give everybody an update on that, which, as she told everyone last month, they've been collecting some delinquents. It was up to 30,000 or 40,000 a couple weeks ago, and I know that's a drop in the bucket to where it's at, but the big thing to remember there is the state of Illinois was not allowed to make collection calls, and so all we did was send out some letters and got $40,000 back. So down the line, our salaries and wages, 60%, it's a hair higher than normal, but we've had one extra large payroll versus the smaller payrolls there. The personnel benefits, as I said, looks like it's like we are having a good year in risk management. When you're going to look at the full blue book that we post online, we're way behind where we were last year in health claims, which is a good thing. Supplies and services, both of those are less spending than we have in the past due to the mayor's edict on emergency spending only. And that's really about it until we go through the full numbers. Page 3, you'll see that in the revenue line item, the city charges are up a little bit compared to last year, but the 6th column over, we're only at 54% of the budget. So that's due to, with the COVID situation, our industrial charges are way down this year. Residential, we're all at home using water, but a lot of companies, businesses, manufacturing concerns have been shut down or really slowed down. Then going down the page, the expenditures, salary and wages are up a little bit. Again, because of the one big payroll compared to the 26 weeks. And then you'll see that your supplies and services are right about spending where they normally are down at wastewater. And that's one, anybody that's ever been down there with the plant, it's really hard to cut down on utilities or chemicals when there's flow down there. So their expenses are normally a constant. I know we call those in the world of accounting variable expenses, but they're pretty much fixed expenses. I mean, the plant, the electric and the gas are running 24/7 and they need those chemicals. So
Gets us back to the flow from our outlining
yes,
municipalities.
I
how
mean,
we
the
can-
bad thing, we've talked about that at budget sessions. The way to get more money from the suburbans is, since they pay based on the flow, is unfortunately for us to spend more money. So if we spend more money, we get more money from them, but
Because they pay for a portion
they
of
pay
the.
a portion of it, but we're still spending more money on our end too.
And there's really no alternative, different formula or anything. I mean, I can't believe the same thing is in place
I know.
from the 70s that isn't new and improved in 2020.
I'd like to say I'm wrong. And
There's no other.
I'm not an
municipality that
attorney, so
doesn't
I'm
have-
not an attorney, so I can't, but I'd like to say I'm wrong, but nobody has said that I'm wrong for 50 years. So
Nobody
I mean,
said
tell
you-
me I'm wrong.
You're
but,
wrong.
hey,
There's gotta
tell me I'm
be. There's
wrong, but
gotta
I mean,
be.
for 50 years, every city solicitor has said that this is, it's unfortunately written in stone that we are going to follow this mathematical calculation that Wesleyville pays 4% of the repair and maintenance because that's what their flow is. And there's no matter how much money we spend in the building, they pay 4% of the depreciable value. And those contracts are pretty solid. I want to be wrong because I mean, it
I
would
want
make
you
my
to be.
job a lot easier. I don't want to come to you every year and say we have a sewer increase when we can get the money from Mill Creek. But
We have the crown jewel.
right. Oh yeah.
It should be some beneficial.
And there's nothing in those contracts that says that. And we're the ones, not me, but Basil. I mean, if something goes wrong Saturday night at 2:00 in the morning, the people in Summit or Harbor Creek, they don't care. Get the plant working. He's the one that's got to deal with it. We have to deal with it. And there's no, I don't want to use, I don't know what the right term is, but there's no percentage factor that says we're taking on the burden of running the plant. We should get an extra 10% just because of the burden of running the plant. And that was never written into the contracts.
Well, that can be written in a new contract.
Which
would have to be negotiated. I get
Right.
all that, but
yeah, you're right. Oh, you're right, Jim. You're right. Absolutely. But
so it's time to have a new contract with outlining municipalities.
yes,
Definitely.
but we got
How
to
can we do that?
we got to
moving
get them
forward?
all. Everybody has to be willing to sit down and negotiate. And I guess we could set that up. Ed could call everybody and, as our solicitor and say, hey, let's sit down and talk about these contracts and what's going on. But, if Harbor Creek says no,
If Harbor Creek says no, that what are our?
well, we're not allowed. Years ago, in the 90s, I can show you one of the
Okay,
contracts.
we're in 2020.
I know that, but we had a council person 25 years ago that threatened to shut off
Their flow and let
their
it.
flow. And there's a line item written in the contract that says you're not allowed to threaten or withhold usage. I mean, I'll show you that one. I mean, we can all kind of guess back in the 90s who that council person was. And was he wrong? No, he was absolutely positively not wrong. But once he said, we're shutting the gate down and you're not getting your sewer, it became a problem.
Well, more
I was
for
there.
them than us, but I think after 50 years, it's time to get back to the table and,
Yeah, that would be a great.
we are in that
It's
situation.
time
We
that
need.
talk about merging the water authority and the sewer authority, which could save money, but that, of course, that innovative idea has not been discussed. But
Yes, that
yeah, because
was.
there's too many, solicitor contracts at risk and all that kind of stuff. If you really wanted to show regionally that we were thinking regionally and that we care about what goes on beyond the city limits, we would do a couple of things. One, we would show that we are reining in our costs, because otherwise those suburbs are going to say, there goes the city of Erie just spending money. And two, that we are thinking regionally. And three, that we're thinking of this as an environmental issue. Threatening to shut off sewage treatment is probably anathema in today's world. So, but I'm just preaching to the wall.
Sticky situation.
Okay,
No, you're
page,
not.
Sorry.
oh, sorry.
No, I
Go
just
ahead.
want to let Liz know that she's not preaching to the wall. I hear you. Good point.
Go ahead.
Page 4, the revenue collections for the refuse department are right at 60%. And then our services are up a little bit, as you can see, but that was due to the new contracts we signed with Waste Management for refuse pickup and also recyclable pickups. And we knew that back in October when that was bid out. Page 5, revenues for golf are up a little bit, but $10,000 from last year, even with being shut down for 6 weeks.
There we go, good news.
Yeah. Liquid fuels, the part of the money has come in so far. So we're, as Chuck has given updates on paving, because he used to run that department at the council, the Friday morning meetings, we're out there paving. Capital budget, the spending on capital. Risk management, page 8, you'll see that in that line item, personnel benefits, that's where it shows what we're spending on health and workers' comp claims. And you'll see that health insurance claims are way down this year compared to last year. Then I want to go back to next page is just the debt service. We made our first bond payments in May. The next set come through in November. And then going back to page 12, the very first line item, real estate taxes current. And this is one that we can see that we're 97% of the budget versus 96% of the budget last year. So collections are actually up, even with, the COVID pandemic having a very big
Impact.
Yeah, it was an impact, right, is the right word on employment, because I was thinking back down to the next couple line items, the special levy and the income taxes and the LST tax, line 3183. And that's one I keep talking about, where I'll quote the unemployment statistics. The second quarter of 2020, the unemployment statistics averaged about 15%. So the money we've collected so far shows that we're actually, 1,232,000 versus last year, 1,216,000. I mean, it's showing that the same amount of people are working through June last year versus this year. So I don't know, it's probably the end of August when that second quarter money is all supposed to come in and will come in. We'll see what the big change is going to be. But right now, it's hard to figure out what happened here, because our income taxes and our LST taxes are lagging behind where they should be. So going down that page, line 3216, another one that's been impacted by the COVID, is the building permits are down a little bit, but we have to remember that that whole building industry was closed down for a couple months in that March and April timeframe. And I guess I don't want to drone on and on about this because we talked about a lot of these at budget sessions, mid-year report session and last month's report. I guess maybe I should, any questions about the general fund or sewer fund? Or refuse fund?
This is for your information.
Thank you.
What is this study session going to be called? The water proposal, regarding the water proposal, or is that good?
Sure. I guess one of my questions with Paul was, okay, our revenues are down. What can we do to keep our expenses down to help offset the shortfall we have? I mean, we're still spending, we're not, what can we do to?
As I said, the mayor gave us an edict that instead of ordinary and necessary expenses, everything's now emergency and necessary. So, I needed a pen.
We can look at pens and paper. That doesn't cut it. I'm looking at a new pickup, just say for Public Works. Does that have to happen?
Everything along those lines is being bought out of the capital budget. So it's not impacting the general fund.
Okay.
And again, we're same thing there. We're ordinary and necessary has now become emergency and necessary. So you've seen a lot less capital expenses on council agendas this year versus years in the past, which is going to, it's going to come back to haunt us somewhere in the future, that we're going to come to a point in time where we're going to need pickup trucks.
I get all that. Overtime, the mayor mentioned that overtime is down and we may be saving some money there. Is that both police and fire, or why is overtime down? I mean, what are we saving right now? Is that, if it goes to the same, if we stick to that overtime being down, how can that offset the shortfall?
That can have a great impact on the budget also, depending on how overtime plays itself out throughout the year. In both the police and fire contracts, they have, it's a rule in the contracts that they're use it or lose it on their vacation time, as you just mentioned. So those things are scheduled out throughout the year. It's just, we've been lucky so far this year that the sick time is down, where that normally is a big driver of excess overtime in those two departments.
I have a question on the earned income. Did I understand that people who are working in the city but living outside the city and working at home will not pay the unit?
They're not going to pay, correct. They're not going to pay that extra, the special levy.
How can that be?
Well, there's
paid by the city they're working.
City residents, or city business.
City residents are paying it, but
city business, I guess. They're getting a check from Erie Insurance, who is home base is.
But they're not working in Erie. They're working in Mill Creek.
Usually they are.
I know. And
so we're just sitting back and taking it?
I know you had mentioned that
Bill Leonard from Berkheimer has gone through this, and the state law says that's the rule.
That's the rule. That's always been the rule?
Yes.
Or it just
yes.
came
No,
up
it's always
because
been
of
the rule. There's like a 90-day window where you're not allowed to say, I'm not going to pay that tax since I'm working from home. But once you've worked from home for 90 days or more, it's felt that that's your new place of business. So yeah,
there's no loophole to get around that to help for
No.
the good of. I mean, that money goes where?
normal in that line item
Well, yeah, but
3148.
okay, so it isn't going in that line item. Is
Well,
it going to?
for the people, if I lived in Milk Creek and worked at Erie Insurance, the extra 0.65 would stay in the city of Erie. but now it's just going to go into my paycheck because all the other municipalities around here are all 1% earned income tax withholding cities. So those people are getting, in effect, are getting a raise by working. I mean, not a big raise, 2/3 of 1% of whatever their salary is, but 8, 10, 15 bucks a week, they're getting a raise in their paycheck. But it adds up for us. It's about, Bill Leonard did the math for me. He's got all that stuff out there. It's going to be, that's why in the mid-year report, LST was down. It's about $750,000 a quarter. I mean, Erie Insurance, we figured they were almost $400,000 just alone. Luckily, the hospitals are still working. Both Hammett and Vincent, the school district's still working. So some of the bigger employers are still working. So we're still getting their money.
You figured about 60% of the workforce in Erie live out, or what was that
Yes,
percentage?
60%, yes.
For those of you who are keeping score at home, I'm talking to the citizens out there. If you're keeping score about how often women's voices are heard, I want to point out that I asked the question about remote workers months ago after I read a story in the Philadelphia Inquirer, and I was told not to worry about it. So one more example of why I get frustrated serving on this council. It doesn't seem to pay off to do your homework. If you're a woman especially, people don't listen to you. It's really too bad that in 2020, that's the way somebody like me, who's had a lot of accomplishments in my life, has been made to feel. So I wish we had recorded, maybe we had, but I just want it there on the record that I raised the question because I read about it months ago in the Philadelphia Inquirer because it was becoming a concern there. So anyhow, if you wonder why I'm particularly irritated today, it really is tough to do your homework and be disregarded over and over and over again. Thank you, Jim Winarski, for raising the question about how we're cutting expenditures. Isn't that the same thing I just said like 20 minutes ago? If I say it, it isn't answered. Thank you, Mel, for saying that I'm not talking to the wall. However, I do feel that way. When somebody calls you honey at a city council meeting in front of everybody, it kind of sets the tone for how women are treated.
I don't know. Anyway, you can continue there, Mr. Lichtenwalter.
Again, back to, I think the tax issue and the building permits, looking down this page is you're going to get a chance to look through your books. Pilots have actually gone up a little bit from what was budgeted. There were a couple of assessments that helped out there. You look on the second page of the general fund revenues, page 12. There's the parking fines. As I said, we were pretty much shut down downtown for a couple months. So parking fines are up a little bit, and that's because of the collections of the delinquents.
Does anybody know what happens to that woman that had all those tickets over there by her towers?
I believe she paid them, right, Kathy?
The issue was resolved, yes, thank you. But there would be a day where I would like to do a study session on parking just to revisit after things were brought to light. It is a challenge living downtown and following the parking regulations on a daily basis. So, thanks.
Kathy, did she pay the tickets though? That's unclear. How was it resolved?
It was resolved. She found out how much she owed, and I haven't talked to her like the very final thing, but she was very thankful of the women in the parking department who brought attention to everything, and she made a plea out there, and
Payment plan
Well,
or?
the reason I'm asking is because this sounds very similar to another case where a person complained about the burden of having to pay off all those tickets. And at that time, I believe the response was, you ran up the tickets, you have to pay for it. Did this woman get special treatment? That's what I'm trying to find out. Can you find out for us?
Frank.
I mean, if she was told the same thing that this
You want a
other young
charger?
woman was told, that's fine, but you just said it was resolved. I would really like to know more about how.
She had to pay a large amount of money, that I do know.
But she didn't have to pay the whole thing, is that correct? Interesting. I think we should have a study session on this. Are you saying she did not have to pay the whole chunk
Here,
though,
this one. This one.
right?
I
I
Find
don't know where
out.
that one is, but
yeah.
Thank you.
thanks, buddy. Paul, you want, if there's anything,
No, nothing really. I mean, I went over the highlights. Everybody please take a look at your monthly book and then give me a call whenever you get a chance, or email me with any questions.
I did have one other question, Paul. Chris Groner, congratulations to him, I guess, but what's the city, is he with the city, is he with the county? We're still paying him, or?
Yes, he's still an employee of the cities.
Okay, so what's he with the county?
I don't know that
Employee
answer.
of the county too?
I don't know that. I mean, maybe we could ask Connie would know the answer to that question. I don't know.
Okay, because we should be, we're saving money now on his
Yes.
salary.
Yes.
Well, if we saving money on the salary, he shouldn't be on the payroll if he's gone.
Well, he's still going to help with
Thanks.
handling the business development loan fund and a couple of the other smaller funds.
He's still
So,
gonna run the
is-
investment funds and he's gonna be paid from the interest on the funds. He won't be paid out of the general fund. So we're saving that. The
Yeah,
money that
that's a
he was-
big savings because 5 years ago, when the funds couldn't pay his salary, he was being, that position was being paid 100% by the general fund. So now that he's got enough money in there, there's enough interest turning over, it's going to revert back to the way it used to be. And he'll be paid only by the interest that's earned in the fund.
He's not a consultant, is he? Okay, as long as he's not a consultant.
No, he's still a city employee, but he's paid through the interest from the investments.
There's only so much time in the day. If he works 7.5, 8 hours, and he's a city employee, but he's 7.5, 8 hours, and he's working for the county, that's where I'm confused.
He's doing the same kind of work for the county that he's doing for the city. So he'll be leveraging the resources, the loan funds from the city and from the county to get these deals done. But it's the same kind of work.
All right, be very careful with the double dipping. Be very careful there. That's. It seems to me to be very close. Be careful.
Another advantage of this is that the city's loan funds are all expended right now, while the county still has 5 or 6 million available. And obviously the city is in the county, so he's able to access those funds as well.
Okay. Keyword access. Okay. Thank you. I'm happy now.
Any other questions, council, for Paul?
I'm done.
I'm thinking we're good. Ms. Shaw?
Thank you, everyone. So we're going to have a study session on that, one of those Fridays regarding the water issue,
It's going to be the 14th
August 14th.
at 11
Thank you.
o'clock.
Thank you.
11 o'clock?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all very much.
Okay.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Who was the brainchild for 5:30 study session?
Don't blame me. I'm